This is having an effect not only on people's mental health at this stage, but it's having an effect on land values straight away. So the issue isn't just about, I might have been on the front of the paper this morning, but it's not just about me. It's about me and my family and our livelihoods. It's about you and your family and your safety and your livelihoods here in the marsh. To date, Moorabool Environment Group, in our small capacity, has covered more media than I ever thought possible. If I'm looking a bit ragged after the picture in the Age this morning, my first interview was at 6:10 on 3AW this morning, and it hasn't stopped all day. Channel 10 were at our place, the ABC were at Deb's place. We've had more interviews than you can poke a stick at. Last Monday, 3 of us fronted a parliamentary committee, the Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee, on your behalf, talking about how our agricultural land should not be put under threat by a mining licence. And when this mining licence, when we talk about it, we're talking about people coming in from out of our town, bringing their own employees into our town, not paying rates in our town. We would have to cover the costs of all the roads, we'd have to cover the cost of all the infrastructure that's needed, and we don't get anything back for it. The Shire doesn't get reimbursed for it, and we know this because up in Queensland and New South Wales, this is happening at the moment. What they're going through, and Western Australia too, yep, I missed that one, I'm sorry. That Oakey and Ackland up in Queensland, all along the Darling Downs, it's appalling what the people are going through up there. And when I saw what's happening up there, it made me even angrier and more determined that I would stand up and put my life on hold and fight, because our town is worth fighting for. Today this was issued. A spokesman for the Baillieu government said it was sympathetic to landowners who did not want to give up their properties for mining operations, but not at the expense of the state's economic interests. We encourage companies to seek out resources that are available in Victoria, and as long as they follow all due legal and regulatory processes, then the government wants to encourage mining in Victoria, the spokesman said. It's just at odds with everything that the federal government's been telling us and charging us with. So I'll just leave you to think about that one, and we'll talk about it again later. I'm just going to introduce our speaker from the Environmental Defenders Office. His name's Nick Croggan, and he's a solicitor there. The Environmental Defenders Office is a team of lawyers who provide legal assistance to people who want to use the law to protect the environment. The EDO is the only thing like it in Victoria. Nick joined the EDO in January this year, but the EDO has been around for about 20 years. Nick has provided legal advice and representation to individuals trying to stop logging in local forests, to grassroots community groups trying to stop toxic waste facilities, and to peak environmental groups campaigning to stop new brown coal power stations. So they have got a terrific background, and through a build-up of trust by Moorabool Environment Group being respectful, they have taken our case on board, and we very much appreciate what they're doing for us. So Nick, if you'd like to come up, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much to the Moorabool Environment Group for inviting me out to speak to you, and thank you all for coming along. The last time I spoke about this issue to a room as packed as this was out in Forest, which is just sort of on the edge of the Otway Ranges there, and they were similarly concerned as you are about a potential mining proposal out in that area. And following that meeting, about 2 or 3 weeks later, the mining company that held the exploration licence decided to withdraw that licence completely. So what that shows is that simply your presence here and the concern that you have about this proposal is a really great starting point, and it can make a really big impact. So well done on coming along. What I'm going to talk about is the legal side of things. I'm going to cover 3 things. Firstly, I'll just explain briefly what the EDO is. Secondly, I'll give you a general overview of how mining in Victoria is regulated and how the particular proposal that you're facing will be regulated. And then thirdly, I'll give you some tips about things that you can do, that the law allows you to do to express your opposition to this proposal. So firstly, who's the EDO? As Kate mentioned, I'm a solicitor there. We're an independent organisation and we're a not-for-profit organisation. We're made up of lawyers who essentially help people to use the law to protect the environment. So we do that in two ways. Half of us, and this is the work that I do, give legal advice and representation in court to environment groups and community groups who need help trying to understand the law and who are trying to use it to protect the environment. As part of that, we have an advice line, which you can see on our webpage there as well, which you can ring up at any time and we can give you some advice if you have a question about that topic, about using law to protect the environment. We also do law reform work, so 3 of the solicitors in our office work exclusively on trying to improve the laws that we have and trying to make them better at actually protecting the environment. And like Moorabool Environment Group, we put in a submission to the mining inquiry, and if you wanted to have a read of that and see what suggestions we made, that's also available on our website. Everything that I'm going to say tonight about mining is written on a fact sheet that we've prepared. It's a 3-page document and there's copies of it on the front desk there which you can grab on your way out. I'm not sure that I've got enough, but if they run out and you'd like to get a copy, feel free to contact us and we can email it out to you. I think Deb has copies of it as well in the Moorabool Environment Group. So if you'd like one, please let us know. There's also some information about the EDO as well if you'd like to contact us about this or another issue. So, how is mining regulated in Victoria? It's principally regulated by this piece of legislation, the Mineral Resources Sustainable Development Act. You can access this online for free, and if you need a hand doing that, feel free to ask me, but it's very long and boring, so to get cut to the chase, the basic principle underlying the Act is that the state, the Crown, owns all minerals in Victoria. But importantly, they don't own the land that holds the minerals, which is often, which is yours. And because the state owns minerals in Victoria, it can grant rights in those minerals to mining companies by way of licences. And there's 2 different types of licences that apply here. The first type is an exploration licence. An exploration licence entitles companies to conduct what are known as exploration works, so that can involve simply walking across land and taking surveys, but it can also involve, as Kate has been talking about, drilling into ground using machinery. The basic process for a company to get to start doing this exploration work is they need to apply to the DPI, the Department of Primary Industries, for a licence. That has to be advertised. Although, as many of you will know, it doesn't get advertised very widely at all and it's very easy to miss. It goes in one state newspaper and one local newspaper, just once. If the DPI grant the exploration licence, they can't conduct any exploration work, which includes drilling, until they've prepared a work plan. And a work plan sets out in a lot more detail where their exploration work is going to take place, and what the conditions on that work taking place are, what the environmental constraints are, and that's both the licence and the work plan are publicly available documents. That doesn't mean they're very easy to find, but you can get them. Some of them, in fact both of them, you can get online. So if you wanted to read those and find out exactly what's going on, you can contact the DPI, or Moorabool Environment Group might have copies of those.
Moorabool Council was kind enough to put the work plan up on their website.
Yeah, so those documents can be accessed and you can have a look at them. The second licence that's significant is a mining licence. So typically what companies do is they apply for an exploration licence over a large area. They do some targeted exploration works And if they find that the mining proposal is going to be feasible, then they'll go on to apply for a mining licence. You can see the process for getting to do mining work is a little bit longer than exploration work. There's a couple of extra steps. Again, you need to apply to DPI and advertise. This time, landowners are notified that a mining licence has been applied for, directly notified. There's a work plan. There's a work authority, which is another sort of formal step that's required before they can carry out mining. Crucially, they may need to get planning approval as well. It depends where exactly in the council the work is going to take place, but they may need to get a planning permit, and as I'll explain in a minute, that gives you as community members an opportunity to object and perhaps even appeal a permit approval to VCAT. So, here's 4 things that you can do using this legal regime to object and express your opposition to mining proposals. The first thing you can do is object to a licence. I've already mentioned that notification and advertising of licences isn't great, and you might not necessarily notice it, but the great work that the Moorabool Environment Group is doing means that you've got a great head start there, and chances are you will know when that mining licence is applied for. Once you do, you can object to DPI, so that means writing a letter to the DPI about why you don't want this mining licence to be granted. Importantly, you have to do so within 21 days of the advertisement of the mining licence application. The Mining Act doesn't say what grounds you can object on, which means you can object on whatever grounds you like, but it means you can raise things like local environmental concerns, so the impact that the mining proposal will have on your local environment and your local community. You can talk about the impacts coal mining can have at a broader level, at a state level and a national level, about what it means to be digging coal out of the ground again. And a good start is what's known as the Ecologically Sustainable Development Principles, which are at the very start of the Act. And they're principles that relate to protecting the environment, and they're something that the DPI has to have regard to when they're deciding whether or not to grant a licence. So they can be a good start. Number 2. Interestingly, built into the Victorian Act that regulates mining is a process that allows landowners to apply for their land, if it's agricultural land, to be exempted from the mining licence area. The process that plays out under the Act is a little complicated, but as a vague overview, if your land is affected by a mining licence and you use that land for agricultural purposes, you can apply for your land to be exempted from the licence. The mining licence holder has to prepare an assessment about why this land is better used for mining as opposed to agricultural purposes, and then you prepare an opposing assessment, and that goes to an independent decision maker to decide whether or not it should be mining or agricultural. I can't tell you too much more about the process because I don't know that it's ever happened before in Victoria or ever been used.
What about in WA?
I'm not sure, but they
don't have much agriculture in WA, but they've got a lot of mining leases.
They do. The legislation in WA is not something I'm very familiar with, but I think it's different. And I don't know that they have this same provision.
Okay.
So it's something that we can use in Victoria.
Yeah.
Importantly, time limits apply to getting in your applications to exempt your land and preparing your assessments. So if that's something that you'd like to do, please feel free to contact us and we can help you out with that. Number 3. I mentioned earlier that the mining works may require planning approval. If that's the case and they need to apply to the local council for a planning permit, then just like any other planning permit in the council, you can object to that planning permit. You need to do so within about 14 days. And if the local council then grants the planning permit, then you have a right as an objector to appeal that to VCAT. That's a really powerful right in Victoria. It doesn't exist in other places. For example, WA doesn't have that right to appeal planning decisions to VCAT. And although VCAT is not always the best forum for these sorts of arguments, it's way better than doing it in the Supreme Court, for example. You don't have to have lawyers. You can go along yourself and make your arguments. And as far as courts go, it's pretty accessible. So that's a really important right that you have there. Finally, there's the lock the gate approach. I understand that the Moorabool Environment Group has recently struck up an alliance with the Lock the Gate Alliance. And they're a group that's been doing a lot of work up in Queensland and New South Wales for communities who are facing exactly this same problem. In Victoria, the mining legislation is different from that in New South Wales and Queensland, but it says that any work that a licence holder wants to carry out on your land, they first need to get your consent to do that. If they don't get your consent, so if you say no, then the licence holder can apply for a compensation agreement. That's usually handled by, at first instance, I think, a mining warden, and then it can go to VCAT and ultimately to the Supreme Court. But the important thing to remember is that your consent or a compensation agreement is required before they can carry out any work. So with that in mind, here are our tips if you want to refuse consent completely to the mining companies coming on and doing work on your land. Firstly, before you agree to anything, get an independent advisor, whether that's a lawyer that you know, a local lawyer. If it's us, we can either help you or refer you to someone who can. It's important to do that before you agree to anything. Secondly, stay alert. Don't ignore letters that come to you, because it may mean that this process of applying for compensation orders has started, and you want to be involved in that and knowing what's going on, because the point at which you become inaccessible to the mining company who wants to obtain your consent makes it easier for them to then apply under the Act for the compensation agreement. So it's important to remain engaged and participate in the process as much as you can. And thirdly, get everything in writing and be very clear on the limits of any provisions that you give. So, where can you get more information? I mentioned that landowners are required to be given notice of a mining licence application. It's not the case with an exploration licence, but it is the case with a mining licence application. You're meant to get 2 weeks' notice. You're also entitled to 7 days' notice of any work under an exploration licence or a mining licence. Anybody can get copies of licences and work plans, and they can be really useful tools to understand what's going on. And finally, from us, we've prepared the fact sheet, which you can grab on the way out. You can give us a call if you like. I'm happy to answer questions at the end if you'd like to come up and talk to me as well. And that's our phone number there if you'd like to give us a call. I hope it's been useful tonight, and I hope you have all the best of luck with it. Thank you.
Turbine is not allowed to be built within 2 kilometres of a dwelling. A coal mine buffer zone is 100 metres. Our next speaker that I'd like to introduce you to is Sean Murray. Sean is probably more identifiable as the young lad that climbed the drill site and chained himself to the top of it on our behalf and got some good material. I was just thrilled that my youngest daughter rang my oldest daughter and said, just tell me it's not mum.
Thanks very much. Thanks everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm actually the spokesperson on coal for Friends of the Earth Australia, and I work with a group, a Melbourne-based group called Switch Off Coal, and we've been campaigning against coal, various coal projects this year and going back as well with other groups a couple of years as well. So I want to let you know first of all that people in Melbourne are concerned about this as much as you are. They may not be directly impacted, of course, in the same way that you could potentially be, but there's still a lot of concern in Melbourne about this project, and that when you stand up and fight for your rights, as I know that you're going to, we're going to stand there with you and fight alongside you. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. And I also think that if we fight together and we do it in an intelligent way, in a well-coordinated way, I think we can win. Following the article in The Age today, there was a poll online. Did anyone see that? There's almost, 10,000 people responded. 2/3 of them said that Mantle shouldn't be granted a mining licence in Bacchus Marsh. So I think that's first of all, that's a huge show of public support, first of all, that you should be reassured by. So we know that most people in Victoria don't want their key agricultural areas sacrificed for brown coal mining. Why would we? So that's pretty clear, first of all. So it's our job to do together is to push that to the front of the political agenda so it can't be ignored. Nick's outlines the various legal recourses we have of how to fight that, and that's fantastic. But we have other opportunities to fight that as well. Before I go there though, I'd just like to talk briefly about the company and some of the other companies involved and what we've done so far in this campaign, just to bring you up to speed. So Mantle Mining, as you know, the mining company from Western Australia that are chiefly involved in this project, and they're also teeing up. They're also working with another company, a Melbourne-based company called Exogen, who are the coal technology company that have basically made this project possible. Because what they've come up with is a technology to de-water or to dry the brown coal. And until now, that hasn't been very economically viable to do, but they've proven that technology. They've actually already taken 2 tonnes of coal from Bacchus Marsh, they've taken it to Tasmania, they've dried it in a test plant and demonstrated that they can do it economically. And to do that, they're using this state-of-the-art technology that Rio Tinto have developed, which is where they dig a huge 12-metre diameter hole up to 2 kilometres down in the ground, and they basically pump the coal down, the brown coal, which is very wet. They pump it down there, and through the process of pressure, it separates from the water, and then they pump it back up again. So already that rings some pretty big alarm bells for me about what they're going to do with that water at the end of the process, whether they're going through aquifers or whatnot to get down as far as they need to go. I think there are just so many unknowns about this project, as well as the concerns of digging a huge open-cut coal mine in obviously a key agricultural area, and digging it, presumably it's going to go through some areas of the water table. Once again, who knows? Have they provided that information? Have they told you anything about this so far? Probably not. So the way that the company engages, and at the moment it's perfectly legal to do, is to do what they've been doing. They put an ad in page 26 of the Business Age to say, hey, we're applying for this exploration licence. They advertise it into some local papers that may or may not be delivered to your area. And put up your hand if you live in this area. Put up your hand if the mining company contacted you to let you know what's going on. That's the law as it stands, and that's why I think the law is immoral, and the law needs to be changed. And I believe that you should have rights about whether or not, first of all, to be informed and consulted about the process, and secondly, to be able to say, no, I don't want to have a coal mine on my property. I don't want to have this development forced upon me that I don't want. So yeah, there's many unknowns. There's a lot of concerns about this project, particularly around water, but potentially around this experimental coal drying process as well. around the open cut coal mine and the effects of that. You know, will it produce dust? I don't know. So there's a whole bunch of local concerns, obviously the amenity for the area, what it could potentially do to Bacchus Marsh socially. And so there's a whole host of concerns. And there's a disparity between what the mining company, Mantle Mining, has communicated to the community and is telling the community, and what they say to the share market or the ASX. So I went out to the information day, and Callum Lamont, their whatever he is, their PR guy, yeah, he's there telling me, you know, don't worry, it'll be years before anything goes ahead. There's all sorts of reasons why it might not go ahead. Like we might hit, you know, rock that we can't get through, or all this sort of thing. He gave a million reasons why it might not go ahead, but didn't say that they've already got pretty concrete plans to go ahead. They've already done 3D mapping of the geology of the area. They've dried the coal, as I said. They've been talking to this coal technology company. This coal technology company has been talking to potential partners in India, in Japan. So they're already teeing up the whole process of how they're going to dig, dry and export this technology. So 2 weeks ago, or was it 3 weeks now, I thought it was time that people were alerted to this, that it shouldn't be just going under the radar. So as Kate said, I went out to the drill rig with some of our group in the Switch Off Coal Mob, and we went out there and I climbed up the top of the drill rig and I chained myself to it. And I did that because, as I said, I think the law is immoral. The law is wrong, and immoral laws deserve to be broken. And when they're broken very publicly, I think that creates a lot of pressure on politicians and the bureaucracy and the companies that are pushing this project forward. So one person can make a difference for sure, but a whole community standing together can make a huge difference, and that's why I believe you can win. And with our group, the Switch Off Coal Group, has been working with the Moorabool Environment Group, and the other day we've just started this collective campaign that we're calling No New Coal, Bacchus Marsh. So this is going to be our local campaign platform, we hope, that you'll all get involved with. And so this is what we want to all work collectively on. People in Bacchus Marsh and the surrounding areas, and people in Melbourne, this is what we hope to campaign with. And beyond that, Deb's going to introduce it to you in a minute, but what I'd like to tell you is that you're not alone in this struggle. This is part of a much broader struggle that's happening across the country. And in Victoria, you just happen to be one of the first communities that's potentially affected. But if you look at Victoria and the mining leases across it now for coal and coal seam gas, it's like a Swiss cheese. There's just huge, well, not even, there's just huge swathes of area now that are under these mining leases. So it's a really important, for us, for me, campaigning against coal, and for people in Melbourne that are concerned about these issues, it's a really important fight to win, the first major fight. And as part of a national campaign that's happening, this is mining companies and coal seam gas and coal. There's a huge uptake in the number of mining leases and projects that are being undertaken. But fortunately, there's an alliance that's been formed called Lock the Gate, the Lock the Gate Alliance. And that has been very successfully standing up against these coal and coal seam gas companies by saying, no, you're not going to come onto my lands. We're not going to let you. Even if you have to drag me away, I'm not going to let you. And communities have put up these signs, this triangle here, the Lock the Gate, all over Queensland, in New South Wales, and basically now mining companies that come sniffing around in a new area, they see the signs and they move on because they know that the locals are going to put up a huge fight, and it's not worth it to them. I'm not saying that this is necessarily going to end the struggle here, but I think it's important now to build this solidarity in the community to say that collectively you're not going to stand for it, you're not going to allow them onto your land.
Is it legal to lock the gate?
That's an interesting question. So in the first instance it is, you don't have to let them onto your land, and I'm sure we can probably deal with these questions later, but in the first instance it is, you can definitely lock the gate and not have to deal with these companies. Potentially, if it goes through all the legal processes, then possibly not, but you know what? It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened in Victoria before, as far as I'm aware. The law hasn't been tested. And in New South Wales, there's a mining company now for the first time that's about to take a blind farmer to court because he's locked the gate and won't let them on to his land. So they're going to take him to court. That'll be a test case. I can't imagine it's going to play very well for the mining company. But nevertheless, I think you need to do everything that you can to stop them, to not let them on, to stand together and to say no, we're not going to accept it. I don't want to rabbit on too much more. I think I've covered about everything I need to. So I'm going to hand back to Kate to continue. Thanks very much.
I was fortunate enough the week before last to speak at a public forum in Ballarat, and Drew Hutton was also speaking there. Drew is the president of the Lock the Gate. He is the founding member of it, and he's an environmental activist. Moorabool Environment Group feels really strongly about the way this has been operating in other states. So Moorabool Environment Group have signed up to do this. The Lock the Gate Alliance has 5 central aims. 1, to protect Australia's water systems. 2, to protect Australia's agricultural land for food and fibre production. 3, to protect Australia's bushlands and wetlands. 4, to protect the health of all Australians. And 5, to protect Australia's Aboriginal and cultural heritage. I was on the phone to Drew today and he sent this message. He said, "As President, I would like to welcome you, all you good folk from the Moorabool Environment Group and the Moorabool Shire, to the Lock the Gate Alliance. You join with over 110 communities, groups around the country, all fighting to protect the bush and this country's precious environmental assets. You've put up a wonderful showing with your staunch actions at Bacchus Marsh, and I'm sure you will help us create history. I was recently in Victoria with the Friends of the Earth Roadshow on coal seam gas and was very impressed with the beautiful countryside in the southwest and horrified at what the coal mining and gas industry want to do to it. I hope I catch up with you all soon. Best wishes, Drew Hutton." Deb's been busy. That's a picture of Drew. He's parked himself in front of gates. When you join the Lock the Gate, it does not mean that you have to chain your gates shut. If you display the sign, and this is the notice that goes out the front, it says, "A person's common law right to enter is expressly withdrawn. Admittance by invitation only to all persons and entities. Otherwise, trespass applies." And it talks about a precedential case that's happened. So once that's up out the front of your place, then the mining company cannot waltz on to try and make an agreement with you. They have to approach you in writing, and we find that that's the best way, because I know that they approached an elderly chap near our place on a Sunday night at 5 o'clock. He was home alone and they came onto his property without being invited, and I'm just thrilled that he was alert enough to find out and work out what they're up to, and he rejected their claim for drilling on his land. So it's the tactics that the mining companies use that we've started to learn an awful lot about, and it's quite horrifying the way they operate.
So we'll just have a look at this. If this is what you want Bacchus Marsh to look like, rather than this, then we actually do need to fight together to actually stop it happening. Now, I certainly don't want to be looking at that. I don't think there's anyone else in the room who'd be too interested in living next door to that, suffering the effects of that.
Oh yeah. So what can you do? To start with, we felt that we didn't know what to do. You need to have something that everybody, no matter what your level of comfort is, whether, I mean, I'm not prepared to climb a drill rig, but there are people who are prepared to do that sort of thing. If you're happy to write a letter, that's what we'd love you to do. On the flyer at the door, there's a list of Mr. Baillieu, the 3 ministers involved in water security, food security, agriculture, the environmental minister. They need letters, not just 1 or 2, but if everyone could organise a letter. Mr. Baillieu blew us off a couple of weeks ago by saying there was very little interest in what was happening in Bacchus Marsh. He's been very dismissive of anything. I was talking to him on radio one day and he said that there was no need for anxiety, it's only an exploration licence. No exploration company puts up $1 million or so to do drilling without expecting some sort of return for it. And our big concern is, mantle mining is a very small concern, but if they get the results that they want and they can get their mining licence through, they're going to sell that. And it won't be to another little company, it'll be to a major company. Another issue that we're concerned about is the timing. These sorts of things always seem to happen when no one's around, and we're very concerned that they will be trying to get their mining licence through over the Christmas period, when no one's around, when everyone's frantic with other things to do, that they haven't got the time to sit down and write an objection. So we're encouraging people. We're going to be having letter writing workshops if you're not confident in doing one yourself, but if you are, we would suggest that you write an objection and you just have it put there on the shelf, so that when we alert you that there is a mining licence trying to go through and we're only given 21 days from notification, that you only have to bung a stamp on it and post it, that all the hard work's done, so that you are pre-prepared for it. We've got petitions there that we've been gathering names from people from all over Victoria and interstate as well. We're taking those down on a regular basis, and Don Nadella's been terrific in taking those along and presenting them on our behalf. If you would like to take a whole sheet with you to get it filled out, Chris Weir over at the stock feeds is quite happy for you just to drop it in there and we'll pick it up and make sure it gets to where it needs to go. But if you're just more comfortable in just signing your name tonight, then we'd appreciate that as well. We need you who are here tonight to go and talk to 5 other people. We need you to make them aware that they need to be looking in the local papers, and I know a lot of you either don't get them delivered or that the local paper, you might look at the sulky snippets up the back to see if your horse's name got in, or you might check your kids' footy results, or you might check to see who's fallen off the perch, but you really don't look at the front part of the page. The front part is important because there will be public notices. Again, Don Nadella's been terrific in, for example, tonight advertising in 2 of the local papers that tonight's meeting was on. And for us, that is a huge bonus because Moorabool Environment Group, with its membership of this big, is a very poor little member group. And we've been running on the smell of an oily rag. And we're very grateful for the people who've put donations in the donation bucket, just for printing costs. and for what we're trying to do to get the information out to all you guys. If you talk to 5 other people, tell them it's really important, take a flyer for them, tell them it's really important to write a letter to one of the people. If you've got kids, a handwritten letter from a kid is priceless, and that we're really encouraging you to do that as well. Every age level will be affected by this coal mining situation, and we're just asking that the ripple of goodwill in our vibrant community, in our vibrant, healthy community that we now have, will reach out to a lot of people and create a fuss. Make the government stand up, make them take notice of what we're doing, so that it's not, oh, there's no interest in Bacchus Marsh. We want you to help with your support to make sure that there's a lot of interest in what goes on here, and that the politicians do take notice of what we're saying and what we're doing. I'm aware that there are people with questions, and Deb, who's been a wonderful, wonderful secretary for Moorabool Environment Group, she and I have both been learning quickly about lots of things. So if there are any questions that people would like to ask, feel free for the next 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap the evening up, because we're aware of how people have got other things to do and how busy they are. So is there anyone who has a question that they'd like to field to one of us here? Yes, sir.
Mattingly Brown Coal, do they, we've heard over the last 20 years proposals that they would ever expand their open cut. Do they currently have a mining licence?
They do, but the coal that they use, we're led to believe, is for fertiliser and soil improver, that they're not extracting coal as an open cut coal mine. I think the ability to fill it with non-putrescible waste is a big money spinner for them, and I think they're happy doing that. Although we've been told by 2 different sources that were this mining licence were to go ahead, that the initial mining would be north of the Mattingly Brown coal hole, so that would take it to the town towards the back of the grammar school.